Hello everyone, in our video today, we will look at the weirdest events in forbidden history, from the dark history of Valentine's Day to witch hunts in the Middle Ages. Let's start. The dark history of Valentine's Day was one of the immoral and wild traditions of the Romans. But the fun wasn't limited to this. During these celebrations, men organized a matchmaking lottery where the names of women were written, and the couples paired by this lottery would be together whether they wanted or not during the festival. The name Valentine comes from a priest who was executed on February 14th in the 3rd century. This man was later honored as a martyr by the Catholic Church. However, there were several more Christians named Valentine. In the 5th century, when the Roman Empire became Christian, a pope ordered the prohibition of the Lupercalia festival and created a more somber and regular tradition under the name St. Valentine's Day, which has turned into Valentine's Day today. The buried city of Cybersecurity was one of the biggest tragedies of ancient times that we probably didn't see in history classes. It took place in today's Sicily. Archaeologists recently uncovered the buried city of Cybersecurity, where they say the local inhabitants were slaughtered and the survivors were taken as slaves by invaders in the 5th century BC. Historians have known what happened here for a long time, but the evidence seen by archaeologists took place today. After the people of Cybersecurity were slaughtered and the survivors were kidnapped, the city was largely abandoned. As the sand covered the buildings over thousands of years, the city was buried and gradually sank into the ground. The lizard people supposedly live underground in California, at least according to the local legend and folklore of Los Angeles County. The story of the lizard people living under Los Angeles goes back to the ancient Hopi people 5,000 years ago. According to claims, a race of lizard people built 3 giant underground cities along the Pacific coast, one of which is located under Los Angeles. The locations of the others are unknown. In fact, the cities were built to provide protection against terrible fires on the surface, so all of California was engulfed in flames, and the lizard people retreated underground. However, the confusing part of the story is here. According to the Hopi legend, these people weren't really lizard-like reptiles. These people worshipped the lizard, which explains why they built underground cities. On the other hand, the interpretation of the story has changed dramatically over the years. The bloodthirsty Carthaginians, archaeologists have discovered that the ancient Carthaginian civilization, now in North Africa, had a horrific practice. What is surprising about the discovery is that scientists have been denying that the Carthaginians did this for decades. Nevertheless, researchers at Oxford University have confirmed that parents in ancient Carthage sacrificed their own children to the gods. There are ancient records saying that the Carthaginians killed their own children by the Romans and Greeks. So this practice was something that people knew until the 1970s. However, at that time, scientists called the theory racist propaganda and rejected it. They even said that this was something the Greeks and Romans said to slander the Carthaginians. However, if we take a look at the evidence found in cemeteries in Carthage as well as Sicily, Sardinia, and Malta, this was indeed a real event. Children were taken to places called Tophet when they were just a few weeks old, sacrificed, and then burned. Evidence consisted of both animal sacrifices found in the same area and inscriptions with prayers on the killed babies. And yes, all this practice was done for people to be blessed by the gods. The emperor had set up a massive harem consisting of women. In fact, we already know that the ancient rulers of China kept large groups of women at their disposal for both pleasure and reproduction. However, what many people do not know is that there was a hierarchy in each emperor's harem. The highest-ranking woman was the official wife or empress. Then there were normal wives who had higher rank but no real power. The lowest ones were the concubines. During the Ming dynasty, between 1368 and 1644, a ceremony was held in the Forbidden City where each emperor would choose his favorite girls between the ages of 14 and 16. These girls were essentially slaves. Now here comes the shocking part. The emperor also had a small steppe army that dealt with hundreds and hundreds of his female slaves. He had thousands of servants who would step in to ensure that the men did not approach these women, who were considered a threat to his precious wives and concubines. These people lived in the harem and met everyone's needs. However, it was not all. When the emperor died, the concubines faced a much more tragic fate. The concubines who had a good life at any given time were gathered and sacrificed when the emperor died, and they were buried alive so they could keep the emperor happy in the afterlife. Also, Jesus had not fled alone. Mary of Magdala was with him. According to them, Jesus and Mary settled there and had children. Thus, the descendants of Jesus formed a community and became powerful Merovingian kings. Of course, we have no evidence that this is true. However, we do have the historical record of many Frankish kings who claimed to carry Jesus' blood in their veins. But it's impossible for us to know the real lineage of these kings from 1500 years ago. What do you think about this controversial claim? Do you think this could be possible? The real story of Cleopatra's son, Cleopatra and Caesar, are fairly well-known historical figures, but most people are unaware of their mysterious child, Caesarion. Cleopatra, or rather the seventh Cleopatra, was the last pharaoh of Egypt. At 18, she married her 10-year-old brother. Then a civil war broke out between them and she had to flee to Syria. After fleeing, Cleopatra met Roman Emperor Julius Caesar and asked him for help. After a while, she and Caesar killed her brother and husband Ptolemy XIII, and Cleopatra continued her relationship with Caesar after marrying her other brother Ptolemy XIV, giving birth to Caesarion. Those times were quite turbulent. And most people don't know that all of this was the work of the beautiful Cleopatra. Cleopatra made her son co-ruler when he was 3 years old. So biologically, Caesarion was the legitimate heir to the entire kingdom of Egypt and the entire Roman Empire. Being the ruler of the world's largest kingdom and the oldest civilization in the Mediterranean is no small thing. However, Caesar chose Octavia as his heir for whatever reason. After all, it was impossible for the Romans to let an Egyptian child rule them. There are rumors that Caesar tried to change his will, but he was murdered before he could do so. Apparently, the Romans were tired of his obsession with Egypt. In 31 BC, What do you think about Caesar and Cleopatra having a child, or that he ruled for a short while? Share your opinions in the comments. Giants of Sardinia. There is a hidden history related to giants in Sardinia that many people are unaware of. Beyond the crystal-clear waters of the Sardinian coastline and golden beaches, the land under the sunlight was hiding something, and this secret came to light in 1974. What was found were the remnants of the Monte Prima giants. At Monte Prima, approximately 38 giant stone figure statues, broken into pieces, were found. It took about 40 years for archaeologists to piece together the statues and finally restore them to their former glory. Since then, all the statues have been placed in the National Archaeology Museum in Cagliari, where they can be seen today. However, there is still a great deal of mystery surrounding the statues. No one has an idea who exactly built the giants or what their purpose was. There are some theories. Some say the statues were made around 900 BC by the Nuragic civilization, making them about 3,000 years old and one of the largest statues ever carved in the Mediterranean. But it's impossible to say what they intended to depict. In fact, some experts think these people were inspired by mysterious giant-like figures visiting the area. Moreover, there is nothing else like these figures found anywhere in the world. What do you think these giant statues might represent?